All right, this is a video by Blaire White that I've been wanting to watch. It's with is that Buck Johnson? Anyway, the truth about trans kids from trans adults. Okay, so they're both more conservative leaning trans individuals. What's interesting is even if you're transphobic, because we have a trans woman and a trans man, even if you're transphobic, we still have a man and a woman on our screen. So, everything's great. I think Buck Angel, I think he does suspicious work. It's a little early in the video. We can't be thrown off, Okay, well, this will be an interesting conversation. Let's see what they have to say. No. What is happening? What's happening here? Oh, I guess I can't maximize this.
You make me cry right now because I just cannot believe that the world is letting this happen to young people who have everything in front of them right now, and they won't have it because now they're going to be turned onto, oh my God, now I'm carved up. I can't have babies. I can't have sex. And I'm just like, oh my God. Please wake up out there. Please. You have to hear what we're saying. We will be so screwed up. Our whole space, the trans world, will be screwed up from this.
It's got to be a wrap on the trans.
It is. It's going to.
Really
That's right.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So this is the longest time coming.
I get it. Sussy joke.
People are in shock.
Yeah, people
oh, I thought they were like making a joke off of, long time coming. Yeah.
Are pooping themselves. People are smashing their computer screens.
Here it comes.
People are jacking off. Have you seen? But there's so many memes with you and I people make.
Oh, totally.
Like about the trans thing. So this is Buck Angel. I feel like I'm gonna introduce. You're Buck Angel. You are. You are an icon.
Well, so are you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Meeting of the icons.
That's right.
And you are probably the most famous trans man in the world. I mean, let's be honest. There's more mainstream.
There's mainstream trans. Yeah. I don't know. I guess I'm the oldest trans man in the world, really. Does that make me the most well-known? Well, only because I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that really means.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you have paved the way for the community and for the current,
you.
Conversation about trans people to exist. And I think we kind of both agree the conversation has become so skewed in the recent years. And we see eye to eye on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here, friend.
Yeah.
Because I always have appreciated your voice, and I've always appreciated how really a straightforward of a person you are. Not a trans person, not whatever, just a person who really took the space that you have created for yourself to put honesty into the world. Because what you do is actually create honesty. And I think people are tired of hearing lies on some level from our own community. And so really, I think you stepped up to the plate. And really, that's why I sit here. That's why I sit here with you, because I respect you. I feel like I'm very connected to you, and I'm in alignment with you, which I'm not in alignment with a lot of people in this community anymore.
Same.
It's sad for me because I love community, and I think community is important, but I don't know if we really even have.
I mean, why do you think that is? You think it's because like maybe younger trans people don't really agree with what you have to say? I would imagine that's probably part of it.
The trans community anymore.
Yeah, I go back and forth between considering myself a part of the community because there are times where, I do have other trans friends and, when I'm hanging out with them, sometimes I'm like, oh man, this is a community, like we're having fun, we're like whatever. And then other times, you go online and the discourse is so just antithetical towards real life. Like it contradicts so much of what it is to be a real trans person in the world and be trans. It's like we're supposed to be so freaked out about bathrooms, we're supposed to be so freaked out about pronouns and all this stuff that doesn't make its way into my daily life at all. But yet it's the biggest discourse.
Well, yeah, I mean, pronouns wouldn't, or rather the bathroom thing and pronouns probably don't really personally impact you because you are very passable. So, like, you probably don't experience people misgendering you. And, like, bathrooms, again, you don't really experience that problem because you're very passable. So, like, okay. All right, though.
That's right. That's right.
And one of the things, and I brought you here because I feel like pronouns and bathrooms are one thing. The most pressing issue. And first of all, we have something else coming. We're going to film after this. It's going to be possibly even better. Actually, yes, even better. This is the warm-up. I feel like if I'm talking to you about something we're filming later, they're going to think it's something very different.
It's just so great to be with you.
I know. The most pressing issue, I feel, is the kid thing.
Yep, we're definitely in alignment on that.
The bathrooms are one thing. The pronouns are one thing. We can talk about whatever. There are kids getting really messed up by the direction this ideology is going. Physically, mentally, and emotionally. So we are both in agreement, and we can get into the specifics, but we're both in agreement that transitioning is not something for kids.
100% in agreement.
Yeah, I agree
on that. And we can see it. There's always.
Well, I mean, I'd hope they mean like medically transitioning. I mean, I don't know. I'm still on the fence with puberty blockers. I don't know, bro. Because what conflicts me is like if I had a kid who like legitimately had gender dysphoria and they were like 10 years old and they were showing signs since they were like 4 years old. like if I make them go through the puberty, like their sex puberty, right? So if it's like a trans girl, if I make them go through like a male puberty, is that just going to make them even worse and make them like more suicidal? You know what I mean? Like that's the part that like that really conflicts me. Like I just hope I never have to face this problem, honestly, because I don't know.
Exceptions to any rule. I believe that there are some kids that might benefit from this, but on a whole, if we look at it, what's happening today, I disagree with everything that's happening. I disagree with the fast, which we have been started calling it fast tracking, of pushing these kids like if you're going to die if you don't transition. That's all complete, total nonsense, and it's actually on some level.
What I would say is that, like, from my experience with like a friend of mine who's a detransitioner, like they fast tracked their diagnosis and their transition, and it was like very wrong for them. So I think if anything, I'm more open to like, let's have a conversation about how we could like, you know, reduce the amount of misdiagnoses. Because if you detransition, I imagine you were misdiagnosed. So like maybe we could have a conversation about how to reduce those, and then that might get us to a better spot, you know.
Well, it's lying, first off, number one. Number two, it's putting parents in a very, very, very vulnerable space. I'm a parent, so, you know, I don't think it's fair to parents. Not just the kids, but it's also not fair to the parents. And we're not putting the actual, real information out there. So parents don't have anywhere to go. If a doctor's telling you your kid's going to kill themselves, any parent,
what are you going to do?
I'm going to change my kid, right? 100% I am.
And it's I feel like they present these parents and the kids.
Is that what the parents are saying, though? The doctors think...
You know, on a second-hand level, with this false dichotomy of you're either dead or you're trans. So they say things like, would you rather have a dead kid or a trans kid? As if those are...
I've never heard this. Like, are they speaking from experience, or are they also falling for like the conservative trap of like how we talk about? Because I've never ever heard like your kids are either going to be dead or they're... I've never heard this before. I feel like this is not something that's actually happening. I feel like this narrative is just like not happening. Your kid's gonna be dead. I've never heard that before in defense of like hormones. I just, not in my entire life.
The only two options, and you have to remember that the kids are hearing that as well, and the kids are hearing, oh my god, if I don't transition, then you know my life's basically over, and they're literally creating a self-fulfilling prophecy of these kids taking their lives. And there's so much damage to be done to these kids through the medication. We talked about Lupron.
I've never heard this before. I feel like they made this up.
So people don't know this, but Lupron, aka puberty blockers, or you know, leftists try to sort of like, you know, make the terms very vague. So they say affirming care, they say trans health care. Okay, we're gonna get specific here. Lupron is the drug that is known as puberty blockers. They give it to children at 11 or 12 to block puberty, and this is also the drug that's given to pedophiles in prison to sterilize and chemically castrate.
That's right.
Oh, okay. I mean that makes sense. So my I don't. Okay. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. So if hormone blockers. Oh, you've taken that before? Fantastic. Great. So apparently, like, yeah, it blocks like your hormone production, I guess. So yeah, they would probably give that to like an offending, you know, child molester. Okay, but like the way they say it sounds really scary, but it kind of just makes sense. Like, I just so you guys know, is like it doesn't make you a pedophile, so it's okay to give, you know. That's just a weird argument they made.
People don't know this.
No, they don't know. I've been doing a lot of research on Lupron because look,
I think that there's plenty of arguments to say that you might not want to put your kid on puberty blockers without it being used for chemical castrations. I imagine that they have to take it for a long period of time where they like overdose on it or something. I imagine they just continuously take it. What a weird... It's just silly.
I want kids to be happy. I want kids to move forward in the world. But when you start to do the research
like,
on this...
That would be like if I was like, yeah, you know, you know that testosterone that you give to like, that you give to men when they have low testosterone? Well, we also give testosterone to trans men. You're going to become a trans man. You know, it's like a weird fear tactic. What the fuck?
Puberty blocker, holy crap, I can't even believe what it is, and how if people actually saw the real truth in this actual drug, there's no way anyone would be okay with giving that to their child.
Well, do you have any other points? Because I feel like that was kind of like a weak one. I feel like there's probably better points that I could hear.
Long-term effects. Do you know that they did studies on this in Finland and in Sweden for 20 plus years, and they've shut it down?
Yeah, in Europe,
shut it down.
In a lot of countries in Europe, they're actually rescinding the guidelines that children to be given puberty blockers because it's having negative ramifications.
That's right.
And these kids are very much guinea pigs in the sense that, You know, we don't know what's going to happen to kids who do not go through a natural puberty transition. Okay, but then again, like you said earlier, two things can be true at once. I do know people that have transitioned at a very young age, 12 or 13, and they're adults now and they're happy, because it is a rolling of the dice every time.
That's right.
There's just so much, I don't even know where to start.
All right, I'm assuming they're referring to this, which is interesting. So it says Sweden, Sweden's, I don't know what this is. Wait, what does this mean? Is this like a state in Sweden? How does Sweden work? How does this work? Oh, it's like a state. Okay. Policy practice of presenting blockers and cross-sex hormones gender dysphoria. Okay, under the age of 18. This is a watershed moment. This is the world's most renowned hospital. Okay. According to the policy went into effect. Going forward, hormone puberty blockers and cross-sex hormone interventions for gender dysphoric minors may only be provided in research setting approved by Sweden's Ethics Review Board. Policy states that the careful assessment of the patient's maturity level must be concluded to determine if the patient is capable of proving meaningful informed consent. Okay, that's fair. There's also a requirement that patients and guardians are provided with adequate disclosures of the risks and uncertainties of the treatment pathway. It's not clear whether minors under the age of 16 would be eligible for such trials. Okay. I'm gonna play the video. I'll read this.
The definition of trans has been expanded so much that more and more people are obviously thinking that they meet the definition, seeking the care, and then of course there's going to be the explosion of trans people.
Right.
So I guess they haven't explored it enough, and they want to continue to test it. At the same time, they're trying to see if kids can consent to the degree to actually get transition surgery. Okay, I mean, or transition on hormones. I mean, I don't think that's unreasonable. Okay.
And then you have the fact that not traditionally, but historically, it's been gender dysphoria is something that afflicted really young boys. It's flipped now.
I know, it's weird.
Yeah.
It's actually weird. So where did that come from all of a sudden? Where all of a sudden are these young girls realizing TikTok? Just look at TikTok. That's how we are actually losing ground. It's TikTok.
I mean, listen, bro. Okay. So they were just talking about, I mean, I don't, listen, man. They were just talking about how, back in the day, I guess historically, it's like, you know, young boys, so trans women, there more trans women, and now there's more trans men, I guess. And they're referencing like TikTok and also just so you guys know, like, I think it's kind of weird they were just talking about how trans is like expanding out from like not just gender dysphoria, but just like regular identification. So like, yeah, it seems like more of the people who simply identify as like non-binary are women. But that doesn't mean that they have gender dysphoria, and it's like interesting. Is Blaire White like doesn't believe in non-binary, or rather doesn't like is very disparaging towards it. Which you do you? I don't give a shit. But like that's not the same as having gender dysphoria, and you know that, so you're being kind of dishonest here by saying like I don't think that there's like this influx of we'll say trans men. I think that there's just more people that are like identifying, and like yeah, that's probably TikTok, and there's people exploring their gender. And there's probably a lot of trans trenders who are just pretending because they want fucking attention. I'm not gonna lie about that, but it's not the same as having like gender dysphoria at all.
The fact that all these kids
it sounds so petty, but it's real.
Oh no, it's not petty. Go on there. Anyone who disbelieves just go on there and search any of these situations. You see young kids running around. I've seen 13, 14-year-old kids with chest surgery going, woohoo, we're so like what?
I've never seen that.
Who does that? This has always been a private space. Okay. I think for yourself as well. Transitioning.
I mean, that's insane, but I think that's an outlier. If you've ever seen that
private space. And to be jumping around about your surgeries or these things seems very indoctrinating to me. Yes. It's like, look what I got. Yeah. You want to have it too. That is actually, you can just see it on TikTok. That's all I'm going to say. Just watch it.
Well, because a lot of these surgeons are branding themselves. They're becoming little influencers on TikTok and on Instagram, other platforms, but mostly TikTok. And they're becoming like trans kid surgeon influencers.
Oh my God.
What? Can you just show me any of this? I've never seen, I feel like this is just, I've never seen a trans kid TikTok and like a trans fucking surgeon. What?
I can't tell. How is that even ethical?
It's very unethical because even if we were to set aside
why aren't they showing this to us? I've never seen any of the things that they're talking about. Trans youth TikTok surgeon head for clash with lawmakers. Okay, what are they talking about? Florida fresh off a high-profile battle to ban what critics call gay and transgender grooming of young adults in public schools may be ready for the next legit fight. Barring sex surgery for teenagers by doctors, including the ones who boast on TikTok that is easier than I've never seen. I wish they would have showed this because I've never seen this before. Okay, is this one of them? Pain. How's the pain after top surgery? Yeet. Not bad. Most of our patients rate between 4 to 10 for the first 2 days. Okay, so it looks like this might actually exist. I just wish they would do their due diligence. Gender surgeon. Okay, this is the person. Gender affirming surgeon, Miami based. Okay. So they're advertising towards kids though?
A very common fear in folks undergoing top surgery graft is. So this is a common. A lot of folks ask. Typically, so what are the downsides? Okay, so what about...
They use like a lot of audio, so I'm just looking to see with anything that looks like it has anything to do with kids. It doesn't seem like this has anything to do with kids. They're a surgeon, but like where's the kids part? That's the part. I'm gonna see if I can find this red dress picture that they're showing us. Okay, we'll keep the video going while we do this.
Negative ramifications of transitioning so young, even if it were a thing that was okay, you're clearly branding the surgery and you're branding it to kids.
That's right.
So it just becomes such a
oh wait, so is their argument that this looks like it's a warning? Is their argument that like since it's a surgery thing on TikTok that it's branding it to kids? I feel like it's a little bit of a stretch. Like yeah, kids are seeing it, but like I think there's a difference between showing something on TikTok. Sorry, I'm just cleaning my glasses. Versus like advocating that kids get a thing on TikTok. Like what's probably more worrisome is that the fact that they do targeted advertisements and tell people that they have ADHD and that they can get online diagnoses. I think that's like a lot shittier, to be honest with you. Okay.
conflict. It's not ethical.
It's not.
And for me, the conversation, and this is why I get frustrated with people on the right, because I mean, let's be real, the people that push back on this are people on the right, and they're doing it rightfully so.
That's right.
But they don't do it in the right way. They don't talk about sterilization. To me, the conversation ends at: do you believe children can consent to?
Well, I think that like it's probably because most of them don't give a shit about trans people. All right, so this is the one it's referencing. Let's see what this has to say. All right, yeet, not bad. Okay, that's the pain. We use numbing medication. All right, none of this has to do with kids of advocating 20% of patients go narc free. Okay. All right. Okay. Wait. Oh, dude, this is so dishonest. Like, this isn't like. This isn't trying to get kids to be trans. This is just advertised on TikTok. It's very dishonest. Like, why do you need to lie in order to push your like to do what you're saying? Okay, so they're just like, bro, the way that these guys talk about shit is pathetic. Okay.
Sterilizing themselves by 12 or 13.
That's
do you
right.
believe a child can decide they don't want to have kids the rest of their life?
That's
and
right.
everything else.
But does it permanently sterilize you? My understanding is that it's temporary, and then you can come off the drugs. Like that's anytime I've watched a trans person talk about it, trans people will be like, "Yeah, we're coming off I'm basically like detransitioning off my hormones until I can get pregnant and have a baby, and then I go back on it." So I don't think that it permanently. It doesn't sterilize you. Like it's the same thing as like somebody who does testosterone for to be a competitor, like a strength training, like somebody who does like powerlifting. Like I've heard Mark Bell talk about it. He's like, yeah, I'm coming off testosterone, I'm gonna cycle off so I can put a baby in my wife, and then I'm gonna go back on. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's permanent.
else I feel like is just an added argument. That can be it right there, but no one talks about that.
Well, that's because the
Like they could have made good points, but they're just talking, and all of it's like they're literally just lying about half the shit that they're talking about. They're just making things up without substantiating anything.
or her, whatever you want to call them, the people who are really pushing against us, and us too, are using all of those things to push against, and not understanding there's no nuance, right? That's the key word in a lot of what's happening today. There is no discussion. There's a middle ground to a lot of this. There are kids who have dysphoria. I don't like to call them trans kids. I call them kids with dysphoria.
Because there are people with dysphoria that are not trans.
There you go. And so once you start labeling something, you now...
Okay, so... I'm trying to... The kids have dysphoria. So, like, what kind of dysphoria? Like, you're saying that they don't have gender dysphoria? What's your argument that they? So dysphoria. What did I just do? So regular dysphoria is a state of unease or generalized distraction with life. There's kids with gender dysphoria. So he's just saying that it's just generalized dysphoria. Listen, I'm apprehensive about like kids transitioning too, you know, especially since like the conversation about detransitioning is like very dishonest. I totally get it. But what the fuck are you talking about? I feel like what the fuck? Oh, dude, what the fuck is this? I'm not doing this. I feel like it's like really I feel like the way that they're talking about this is like really dishonest. Like there's kids with dysphoria. Like a lot of people, if you talk to a lot of trans people, like they knew that they were trans when they were kids. Now, does that mean that all kids that think they're trans are fucking trans? No, but like this is just weird. Okay.
We immediately pushed it into a space, and then why do we have a huge amount of detransitioned children? 20-year-old to me is a child.
Which is not, yes, especially like, tell them how old you are, because like you don't look it.
So for all you out there, Trampa is 50.
Are there a huge amount of detransitioners? I'm sure there are some trans detransitioners, but like, are there a huge amount? Like, how much of a fucking? Oh, okay.
I'll be 60 in June.
God, you have such a young
I know.
energy.
I feel bad. I feel like an old creepy old man saying that to you.
I feel like I'm 60. I feel like I've lived such a
No, you have.
I'm like, oh my god, I feel old. But
you're an old soul. That's why you're so
yeah.
awesome. No, you're an old soul. It's why you're so focused, so smart. Wow. So you are really. I'm not just saying that because I'm here sitting next to you. Really, I do. I appreciate you, and I think you are so powerful. And you use your platform in a way that will actually do such great things for us as trans people. People see you and hear you. I see what they say to you. Like, thank you, Blaire, for being honest. You know, that's all the world wants from us. They only want us to be honest about who we are. Okay. And when you start lying about who you are, people are going to push back on us. We're lying. We are actually lying about who we are.
Yeah. And, you know, it's been very, we'll get back on topic, but it's been very frustrating for years, because I've been talking about this stuff for years.
I know.
Like if you just look up kids transitioning or whatever on my channel, there's videos that are like 4 or 5 years old.
I know.
Since the start, I've been talking about this, and it's always been so frustrating. Feeling like I was the only one, and it has meant so much to me that you've jumped in this fight. And it also, I feel like we are so much more powerful together, twice as powerful together.
Yes.
And it's also important that they're getting this from the trans man perspective and the trans woman perspective, because we're not talking about things that we don't know about.
That's right.
We transitioned, we've taken the medications, we've had the surgeries, we've done the thing. We know what we're talking about. So I think it just means so much that
you gave me the space, and when you gave me the space, I'm like, how could I say no to this? Because I care, like you do. You care. You're not doing this to just be Blaire. You're doing this because you care, and that's why I said, like, I can feel it from your heart. I don't think you're just being an influencer and trying to make $1 billion off of that. You actually care about what's going on, and so do I. It took me a while to understand, because of the space I come from, right? I come from the adult entertainment space. I come from a space that a lot of people push against me and find it to be disgusting. And that's over here. That has nothing to do with me and you sitting here. That's my other business. And exactly. I wouldn't be here if I cared what people thought about me. But that being said, I realized that my voice can be powerful in a more political space, and this is I consider this a political space.
Yes.
And I really feel like I wouldn't be doing a disservice not only to myself and my own transition of 30 years. I've transitioned 30 years ago, and I would be doing a disservice to the young kids today who need to see this is what it's all about. Like, look at me, I have an amazing life because I transitioned, but I didn't do it in a rush.
It's so scary to see.
I mean, I feel like one of the things that bothers people about like waiting, obviously you develop in certain ways, like the male puberties can give you like a lot of dysphoria. But it's not like easy to get like your care. It's not like easy to be like, yeah, I got my gender affirming care, like, because it's so expensive. So I feel like it's kind of an outlier to be able to, it's probably generally cheaper. I don't know, to be able to like transition when you're earlier. I don't know. I know this constantly, because then you won't have to develop like whatever the secondary sex characteristics and whatnot. And so like you won't need as many surgeries, I guess. I don't know, man. I just feel like the way that they're talking about it is weird. But okay.
What I perceive to be a lot of youth that are not trans.
That's right.
Getting caught up in the trans space.
I see it every day. Do you know kids write me every day? And when I say kids, I say 20, because that's a child to me.
Yeah.
Who say, oh my God, Buck, I think I made the wrong choice and I think I need to get out. I'm like, get out of it. Go and de-trans right now. You're only 4 months on hormones. Do it. Stop. I encourage all of them who say that to me, because I believe that there really are. And I don't want them to get 2 years into hormones. And look at me. Look at me.
It does real things. It does real things to your body.
I cannot de-transition and go back to looking like a woman. I'll be the ugliest woman. I'll be working in the circus as the bearded lady. It's real. Like, let's just be real here. It ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, and let's also talk about detransitioners. We're not a thing.
That's right.
Even like 6 years ago when I transitioned.
Not a thing.
Not a thing.
Nope.
And if they were a thing, it was like one person over here, one person over here. And the way I kind of even looked at them was like, oh, that's tragic, but that's super rare. I'm not even going to think about it too much. And now you have just tens of thousands of kids online. And it's like, okay, so clearly there's a problem.
What do you mean? Like tens of thousands of kids detransitioning online? I'm not trying to be like, guy, can you fucking substantiate that? That's like, can you give me like any evidence of that? Like, I'm sure that the people reach out to you, but tens of thousands? It seems like a little exaggeratory here.
Problem here. And one of the things that I think the trans community suffers from is, for all the talk about how conservatives
it's probably gender dysphoria.
live in the past, I think to a large extent leftists and trans people live in the past as well. Because they're still going by these old statistics about how 0.1% of trans people detransition. Okay, let's catch up to 2022, where there's Reddit groups of 20,000 plus,
or
right?
28,000 now.
Right. Let's catch up to 2022.
Do you think that so? There's a detransitioning Reddit. I'm sure that there is. Do you think that it's all full of detransitioners? Do you think that all of it's detransitioners, or do you think that maybe there are a lot of people that aren't? Maybe a lot of people that are transphobic that follow it to kind of like, I'm not saying that's all people, but like, listen. So from my experience, like I'm interested in finding more like transitioning people or detransitioners and like seeing what they have to say and stuff like that. I think that's great. But do you think that most trans affirming people are looking to find like reasonable level-headed detransitioners to see what their perspective is? Probably not. So it's probably mostly like transphobic people who are just kind of like, see, it's really, from what it sounds like, and I could be wrong, but they're not substantiating anything that they say. It sounds like it's like a trans hate group is what it sounds like to me. Okay.
Where the safeguards to transition, we talked about this yesterday.
That's right.
We talked so much off camera. When you transitioned, which was how many years ago?
30 years ago this month.
30 years ago. And you told me about so many safeguards that there were to ensure that this was not going to be something that you regret.
That's right.
And go figure, there were not a lot of detransitioners back then.
Right.
For me, flash forward to 20...
Well, it's probably because back then you couldn't transition if you were like a kid, which I get it, but like I'm just saying, like it's easier to, the conversation is like, does a kid like have the ability and like capacity to like are they in the right frame of mind to consent to transitioning? Which is a good conversation to have, but okay.
15 when I transitioned. Well, years are going by.
Wow.
There was zero safeguards.
That's right.
I walked in to a doctor's office and 20 minutes later walked out with a prescription for estrogen and testosterone.
Well, wait, where was your mental health care?
No, they didn't require it.
What?
No, same with my surgeries.
Same with your surgeries. Yeah, well, I had to go through such, like, which they call gatekeeping, and I changed it to safekeeping. I really feel like it's
so good.
safekeeping.
Yes.
Is that a state difference? Because like obviously that's stupid. I think that you need you should have to have like a legitimate diagnosis in order to do any of this shit. I mean, I don't even know if she's telling the truth because she's been lying this whole time, but.
I'm not gatekeeping because I want you to go through this. I want you to transition if that's your space. What I don't want you to do is get into a space where you're like, oh my God, I just made a huge mistake. I cut my breasts off. I got a hysterectomy. I'm 20 years old. My sex drive is null and void. Like, now how are you going to have a great life?
Well, that's probably a bigger conversation to have, is that like, it seems like that going on the surgeries like destroys your or not the surgeries necessarily. Like going on the hormones, they fuck with your shit and they make you less horny. I imagine that it's more estrogen and testosterone. I feel like testosterone makes you hornier. I don't really know. I could be wrong. That's probably the more important conversation to have because there's going to be downsides that I don't think anybody talks about. But
so this is what I think we're not talking about. There is no rush. There actually is no rush. I didn't transition until my late 20s, right?
Well, okay, but like we both know that there is a rush for some people because they want to kill themselves because they feel like they look like shit. I understand what you're saying, like, hey, be a little patient. I'm just saying, but there's a lot of people who are like, I just feel so miserable. I need these things. I think that's where a lot of people come from. I think your best argument is like, oh, you may think those things are good for you, but they're actually not going to be good for you. Is probably your best argument. But like they're take it as slow as you can, but like a lot of people feel like some type of way about it. That's why they want to transition in the first place. Okay.
30, I think
I was 20.
Like, it's ridiculous that people are in such a rush to transition. This is a life-changing space we're talking about. We're not talking about putting on a jacket and a hat.
And so much of it is permanent. People don't
Permanent.
get it. Like, I cannot have biological children of my own. I do not have that DNA anymore.
Nope.
So these kids transition.
You don't have that DNA anymore? Wait, what? I just, bro, come on. Like, I'm pretty, like, I guarantee you that there are things that, like, are, you can't change. I totally understand that. But, like, your DNA's gone. Like, not for nothing, but I'm pretty sure what you're trying to say is like you're on hormones, so you can't have kids now, but you could go off the hormones temporarily and you could have kids. So, like, come on. Like, like you're kind of full of shit here, no? How are you not lying? How do you feel comfortable lying? This is like weird.
At 12 and 13, which first of all, we were talking about this also off camera, which is like so many trans adults who then go to get the surgery, to go to get a vagina, they don't have the adequate starting point, let's just say, to create that vagina because they never actually developed their starting points because they've been on puberty blockers since 12.
That's right.
So even their own arguments don't even work. If the argument is because they have puberty blockers because it saves them problems later, it seems to me you're trading off problems.
But what are the problems?
Wait.
So the problems are what they're trying to save these kids.
Wait, is that a real thing? Like, dude, how do you even look that up? I feel like that was just random. They're saying that if you don't go through like a male puberty, your penis doesn't grow enough for you to push it inside out. Is that real? I don't even know. How do I look that up?
From is looking masculine or looking feminine.
Which why are looks being prioritized?
First off, look at us. Look at us. We didn't have puberty blockers.
No.
And I think you look pretty feminine. And I think I look pretty masculine. Yeah. So we're proof of the fact that we didn't take puberty blockers. We might have struggled a little bit. I struggled, no, but I don't. Here's what I don't understand. Struggle is not a bad thing. Now, I don't want some kid feeling suicidal and hating himself for the rest of his life. That's different. But a little struggle with maybe having to wear a binder or having to figure out, is this the right space? Well, back in the day when I had to do it, I had to live male. Right, so I had to live as Buck for a year.
Oh, I remember. I read about that.
That's
in the
right.
past, you had to actually go live as a gender before you could medically transition to it.
Did they get rid of that? Like, is that true? I just hard to take anything that they're saying as fact because they just keep lying about weird shit.
Right, so it's basically testing it out. It's a test drive. Do you get in a car and say, I'm buying it? No, you don't. You say, I want to test drive.
Well, yeah, their argument about detransition or their transitioning, how it's like, oh, you can't really tell. Like, that's not they don't have like the typical experience. Like they're very passable. Most people don't get to that point. Like that's really nice for them. But
this car right now, I want to see how awesome it is. Actually, it's not the car I want. I want to go get a different car.
Wow.
So and I just changed my jacket. Instead of now I cut my breasts off, you're never coming back from that. You're not. You're not.
What I struggle with is not understanding how other people don't understand how morbid it is.
Yeah.
How insane it is that we think a 12-year-old, and they'll comment saying it's not happening with 12-year-olds. Yes, it is. It's absolutely happening.
Yep.
I wish you would just show us this. Like, I would love to take your word for it, but you guys keep like lying about weird shit that it's like hard to do that. Like, you know, you're assassinating your own credibility when you're like, you made the claim that there's doctors targeting kids on TikTok, try to get them to transition when it was just when it's just like a doctor's office that does trans surgeries. They're not necessarily targeting kids just because kids might see it. Like, so it's kind of like you're putting things out of context. You know, you're trying to make it seem like there's this active like campaign to try to like, you know, transition kids or whatever, but like you're not showing us anything. So how the fuck am I supposed to take your word for that? Like, can you get like at 12? Do you even have tits enough to get the surgery? I don't even know. I mean, like, it just feels like a lie because you've been lying so much. But okay.
At my plastic surgery clinic, I haven't talked about this on my channel yet, but at my clinic where I got my surgeries, I recently took my friend who is an adult to go get her surgeries. I was there as being support, and the front desk lady came up to me and she recognized me from the Joe Rogan podcast, and she's like, love your podcast. And she was also saying, which is crazy because she knows my views, why would she say this, but she said that due to the recent law in Texas, that she had to make a bunch of phone calls to kids and tell them they couldn't get their surgeries. And I'm like, well, kids meaning what? And she's like, well, I had to call a 14-year-old today, but then we had to cancel his double mastectomy. And then Sydney Watson, a YouTuber, called the same clinic and said, well, what's the youngest age? And she recorded it. It's on camera. Them saying 12 is the earliest age they give double mastectomies to. Which, first of all, do you even have breasts?
You don't even have breasts.
I mean, what are they cutting off?
Yeah, what are they cutting off? And how is that affecting this child in the future? Why would you ever want to cut a child? They're not even done growing. Puberty is actually the most important thing a human being can go through. Human being, I don't care what gender, what sex you are. It doesn't matter. Human beings need puberty. Your brain grows during puberty. So now we're going to dumb everyone down?
Well, that's the thing. What sane... Oh my God, Buck, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here, Buck.
It's so insane.
What sane human being thinks that a person will be healthy mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, pausing their development, canceling their development, really, by 12? You are trapping a child in a child mindset. And that's the kind of people we want running around? I don't think so.
Well, then I start to get all weird conspiracy dude, right? And I'm like, is there like a bigger thing going on here? There has to be. There's a lot of money behind this because there's no way our tiny little little teeny community can have as much power that it has to change laws to literally get our flag flown at the White House.
Yeah,
they
wouldn't give us this power unless they were using it for something else. And I firmly believe that, because y'all have to remember also that, I mean, and you can attest to this even more so than I can, but I grew up in an area.
I can't find anything on like kids getting the double mastectomies at young ages from like a credible source. It's weird. I mean, it might be true. I mean, I can't imagine they're lying. Okay.
Era where I grew up getting jumps because I was, you know, the feminine kid. Getting beat up, I had to learn how to fight.
All right, so the way that you would get it, apparently, is the younger of individuals can get it, which I'm not comfortable with. But they'll be considered if the patient, their guardians, and mental health professionals agree that it can happen, which slightly contradicts what they were saying before about how you could just walk in and get whatever you want. Okay. All right. Interesting.
By 7 years old, I was swinging on high school kids, like it was crazy.
Wow.
And so I grew up in that era, and I'm like, how did we go from that to, if you don't support 12-year-olds removing their body parts, you are a bigot?
That's right.
And it's because I think whatever powers that be, and there are smarter people than me that can figure this out, whatever powers that be have recognized that they can give us this power and utilize it for something else, whether it's some form of eugenics, whether it's some form of, you know, sterilizing the population. I don't know. People don't.
What the fuck are you talking about? If anything, the reason that they're leaning into it too much is because they want to appear fucking woke and they don't really give a shit about the consequences. But like, what the fuck are you talking about? Do you think that it's to sterilize people? Like what? Sterilize trans kids? You think that they're trying to make it so that fucking LGBTQ members can't have babies? Like that would be what a conspiracy. Okay, maybe. Oh, dude, we figured it out. Dude, actually allowing trans surgeries is the way to go. That's the most transphobic thing to do, because think about it. They can't have babies anymore. Boom. You're solving the problem. Oh, they can't pass their dirty trans genetics on. Huh? How you like that? How do you like that? I figured it the fuck out, bro. I'm woke as shit, honestly. Golly, I scare myself. So I might not be alive tomorrow. The government might try to assassinate me for uncovering their insidious plot. I'm the one with my boyfriend that loves you. Hey, what's going on? How you guys doing?
Understand that you're sterilizing kids.
You're actually sterilizing kids. You're doing so much damage to a child that it just seems to me there has to be something more powerful.
I wonder if the child sterilization or the child, like the hormone blockers for kids, I wonder if that is permanent. Like, I wonder if that can be permanently sterilize a kid, because I wouldn't doubt it. I don't know, but I wouldn't necessarily doubt it. Okay.
Powerful involved here, which is what? Money. Money is always follow the money. It's an actual real thing. Money makes people do things. Course, yeah. And Lupron, which I have doing some research on, they had an actual major lawsuit, like I think it was 10 or 15 years ago, where they had to pay $825 million because they were giving Lupron to doctors and asking them and paying the doctors to promote Lupron when they knew what it was.
So unethical.
Okay, well, that's like a fundamental drug issue in America. Okay, so okay. Let's see. Tap to pay $875 million and tap. Kidding me. Let me make sure I don't die here. I'm fucking cry like a sussy baka. All right. Let's see. Tap Pharmaceutical Products in the U.S. joint venture with Abbott, blah, 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 has pleaded guilty to fraudulent sales and marketing practices in regards to its prostate cancer drug, Lupron. Oh, okay. So I guess Lupron is a prostate cancer drug as well. What the fuck? What do they use? Okay, so it happened over prostate cancer. I guess this is okay, so they use Lupron for a lot of stuff. I guess the Lupron's also a treatment in butthole stuff in your prostate cancer. Individual. Okay, so they were bribing doctors. Okay, so this is the company that's doing something shitty. It's not really the drug. Oh, okay, I see what they're saying. They're saying that like they're just trying to get kids to take Lupron so that they can make more money. I mean, maybe. I guess I wouldn't doubt it from all this. I guess from all the scummy things that fucking drug companies do, maybe. So wait, so I guess this is the question. Are there drug companies lobbying for gender dysphoria? Is that what you're saying? Is that you have to show us that.
Here they are again, doing it again. They're paying doctors. Do you know that Jack?
Oh, yeah.
Jack Turbin, I think his name is. He's a child doctor at Stanford. Well, not even a doctor, but I forgot exactly what his title is. But he's also very pro Lupron. And I did the research. He's getting paid by that company. He's gotten like money from them to like promote.
Yeah, that's just. I mean, not to be a fucking that guy, but that's just capitalism, bro. Like this isn't. I'm pretty sure this isn't really an issue in other countries, other first world countries. Like, it's a big issue here because, like, we allow doctors to fucking advertise drugs for us and shit. Like, this is happening outside of all this stuff. Is doctors will be like, dude, you know how crazy it is that we have commercials for fucking drugs to make? Like, that doesn't make sense. Okay, that doesn't make sense. Hey, ask your doctor about fucking penis poop. Like, why? Why the fuck would I ask my doctor about anything? That's insane. Like, he's a doctor. He should be fucking telling me about stuff, you know? That's crazy, though. But, I mean, that's a fundamental issue more than anything else. But it still is, like, a problem, for sure. Okay.
The product. Look at, he's actually a dangerous person. He's the guy who's really promoting puberty blockers for kids.
Well, then also look at the fact that just trans surgeries in general is becoming $1 billion industry.
That's right.
It's growing exponentially. It's exploding. And then, so what do? You expand your clientele. It's not just adults anymore, now it's kids. And it's more kids than ever, and I'm sorry, there's no logical explanation for why gender dysphoria, which is something that was historically seen in young boys, has flipped, and you're seeing it in friend groups. That's right. You're seeing it in parents.
Okay, but you know you're being dishonest at this point. Like, you know you're just lying. You know that you're not seeing it in friend group. Okay, so there's like, I think there's a weird phenomenon. It's like rapid onset gender dysphoria. I don't even know. Or rapid onset like transness or some shit. Like, listen, these people don't have gender dysphoria. It's just a bunch of kids identifying as non-binary. It doesn't make that they have a gender dysphoria. You know, you have to know this, right? Like, you have to know you're lying right now about this like supposed phenomenon. It's a bunch of kids, a lot of which are just doing it to be fucking like they want to be cool and hip. I'm not saying that's all trans people, but there's a lot of them doing it to be cool and hip, and they're identifying as trans, and like it's meaningless because they don't have gender dysphoria, and it means like nothing. But it doesn't mean that they all have gender dysphoria. Like, you're just making up statistics. Like, you're just making up things right now. This is crazy.
Parents and children, which also makes me like...
It's disgusting.
That to me...
Yep.
I just did a video where I covered like a YouTube vlog channel where the dad came out as trans and a few months later the kid's now trans. He's 7.
Barf.
It's...
Not real. That's not real.
Of course not.
It's not
of
real.
course not.
I mean, probably not.
But I struggle with like getting so frustrated that people can't see it. It's like people lose all their common sense.
Yeah, but like you're taking some decent example. Like, I would agree with you. Like, if the dad's coming out gender as trans, like the kid's probably not actually trans. I mean, there's a biological factor, I suppose, but it seems more like they're imitating their dad. I don't know. But like that doesn't mean that everything else that you're saying that's a lie is valid. It just seems like you're just saying a bunch of dumb fucking lies. Like, it's weird. Like, half the shit, or most of the shit that you're saying seems to be like really out of context or like misconstrued intentionally, and then you're like, yeah, and then you throw in like you throw in like one random factoid to be like, yeah, this is why everything is valid.
Because the minute
do you think that's somebody? Don't you think that someone identifying as trans could lead to a higher chance of gender dysphoria? I've been thinking about that. I was actually thinking about that today. I was like, do you think that it will? Because like this is the way my brain goes. Because I don't know exactly what makes somebody trans. Like, there's probably a mixture between like a biological factor, environmental factors, and then I think a womb factor. Like, I think that because there's like a study that talks about like how it's like a phenomenon that could potentially happen in the womb. And so like, do I think that? I don't know. I think about it in like terms of like, okay, in terms of like an alcoholic, right? Like, there's people with addictive personalities, but like once they do a drug, like they just because you have addictive personality doesn't mean that you're gonna become a thing. But like once you become like exposed to a drug, you have like a very addictive personality like associated with it. I'm thinking like, is that how it is? Maybe, but I just feel like it's a lot deeper than that. I mean, these are people who have like. Usually when you like gender dysphoria is when you have like a deep amount of distress associated with your like sex not matching your biology. So it's not just like some like, oh, I don't feel too well. Like, it's a really deep process. And like, I don't know. I think you're I don't see, here's my thing. I don't think so. I think more than anything else, there are probably kids who, and this is something that we don't talk about, but kids are experiencing more mental health problems in general now, probably for a myriad of factors. They're probably, part of it's probably the media that sensationalizes a lot of shit that they think they're going to fucking die. Kids have like a lot of anxiety. I don't know, maybe because they're becoming smarter earlier. I don't know. There's probably like a ton of factors. And so I wouldn't doubt it that these kids are like having like chronic anxiety and depression, which are associated with being trans. And then they're going on the internet and be like, oh, maybe I have gender dysphoria. And then they're like, oh shit, I think I do. And then they go to their doctor and then they say like, oh, I have gender dysphoria. And the doctor's like, sure, whatever. That could be what's happening more than anything else. I think, if anything, misdiagnoses because we're not adequately exploring whether they are or aren't trans. I think that's a lot more likely. I think that's the more likely thing. You know what I mean? So I think it's a conversation about like correctly diagnosing people, which means we have to have real conversations about detransitioners. But I don't think that it's like just, I don't think it's just like, oh, you know, I don't think that them identifying as trans is necessarily, you know, creating more gender dysphoria. I think it might be creating more misdiagnoses, if that makes sense.
You shroud something.
You think there's a big environmental factor? I don't know, man. I don't know if I agree. I think it'd have to be like a really intense environmental factor. Like, I don't think it's a small thing. Yeah, I know a lot of people get mad if you ask those questions. I don't think it's like, I think it, like, so here's an environment that I think you could potentially make your kid trans, but they're 4 years old and they say like, oh, I'm a girl, and when they're like a biological boy, and instead of just like letting them explore that feeling, you're just like, oh, you're a girl? Well, I'm gonna go get you we're gonna go repaint your entire bed pink, and we're gonna buy you Disney Moana or something, and we're gonna fucking get you a dress, and we're gonna get you a new name, and you're not gonna have a dead name, and now you're a girl, and we're gonna present it to, you know, like that is probably a very intense, stressful environmental factor. Whereas you just like, oh, you say you're a girl, like whatever, I don't care. Like, you just don't give it any attention because it probably doesn't mean anything, and then you see how they feel after a year, like over the years. But I don't think like a light environmental factor would like make you like legitimately like have gender dysphoria, you know? So
as being a civil rights issue.
That's right.
Which in many respects, it once was.
It once was, but it's not anymore.
Exactly, because I'm under no illusion that life has been historically easy for people like us.
Of course
I'm
not.
under no illusion that the right wing is our friend. I'm under no illusion there are not genuine struggles for trans people.
That's right.
But we're setting that aside to talk about a more pressing issue, which is these kids.
That's right.
Sterilizing
the
themselves.
Kids. I don't care. I'll be honest with you. I don't. Honestly, Blaire, I do not. If you make a choice and you make a mistake, oh well, dude, you should have done your research and you should have figured it out. I have no problem with that. That's their situation. They got to figure it out. I will not.
I wonder why they haven't spent like any time specifically discussing that they don't think that kids are like old enough to make this decision. Like, that would have felt like the better like thing to me, but they didn't seem to like talk about that too much. They were just like, I don't know, they kind of like fear mongering a little bit, I guess. But okay.
Put into our space and being told that if we don't do this, people are being lied to, parents are being lied to. And I'll say it again, I'm a parent. If somebody said that to me, I would be like, if I wasn't trans, I'd be like, what? Oh my God, I would freak out. What do you mean? What do I do? Well, here, give your kid these medicine and your kid's gonna be all fine. Of course, a parent is gonna do that. They feel very vulnerable at that point and they wanna save their child. So everyone out there needs to understand what Blaire and I are saying is this: we care about these kids. We don't want the kids to be shoved in a space that they're not supposed to be in. That's why there's a group of 28,000 detransition. These are all young kids.
I did a conference on the weekend where I was debating trans issues on a panel, and the opposition to me stated something, well, you know.
I feel like it's better we got rid of the tomboy concept. Like, sometimes girls are just more masculine. I guess, did we get rid of it? I guess so. I guess that's interesting. I mean, I don't know if I agree with what you're saying, but like, I get what you're saying though. I don't know if we got rid of the tomboy aspect. If anything, what you would say is like, maybe girls who traditionally would have been tomboys are now identifying as non-binary. That's possible. I don't know if I agree with that. That's something I haven't really explored, but that's possible. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
It's kind of like back in the day, if someone thought they were gay but found out they weren't, you know, there's no harm done because they thought they were gay but they're not. I'm like, how can you compare these?
You can't.
Things? Being gay is one thing. Having irreversible surgeries and treatments is another.
That's a whole other space.
I thought I
the
was
worst thing that
sussy,
happens if you think you're gay
but
and you're
I
not is you
wasn't.
thought you were gay for a year. The worst thing that happens if you think you're trans for even 6 months is you might have completely irreversible bodily damage, and like you likely will.
There's no comparison at all.
It's a different thing.
Totally different. Sexuality and gender are two different spaces, and our fight is different than the gay fight.
Yeah.
It is completely different, and you're right. So once a kid gets surgery and does all
This
that,
is
how
funny
are
how
they
they
gonna
said
come out of
that.
that? You don't think they're
The
going to be
gay
successful the
fight.
rest of their life? I deal with these kids. They cry to me all the time. I spend hours, on the phone with these kids because I feel on some level that it's my service to do that with these kids, and they don't have anybody else to talk to.
I wonder if there's like a conversation here where like there's like I think that there's probably a midline conversation where when it comes to trans kids where it's like, okay, like I'm uncomfortable with it, but if we can get if we could correctly diagnose people with gender dysphoria and like, maybe we can suss out who is and isn't like actually a trans kid, and maybe some like are just like identifying they don't really understand it or whatever. Like I wonder if there's a conversation to have about how like progressives who aren't trans giving up the fight about like this because they don't give a shit. Like, what does it matter to some progressive if you're actually trans or not? You know what I mean? Like, what does it actually matter? Because like, it's not my kid. Like, it doesn't matter. They look really good by like being virtuous. Like, oh look, I'm okay with trans kids, but like, it doesn't affect them. They don't have trans kids, so they don't. There's no skin in the fight there. So I wonder if it's like just another form of like fucking virtue signaling there.
And I leave crying and like, how is this? You know, it will actually make me cry right now because I just cannot believe that the world is letting this happen to young people who have everything in front of them right now, and they won't have it because now they're going to be turned onto, oh my God, now I'm carved up. I can't have babies. I can't have sex. I'm just like, oh my God. Please wake up out there. Please, you have to hear what we're saying. We will be so screwed up. Our whole space, the trans world, will be screwed up from this.
It's got to be a wrap on the trans.
It is. It's going
to be a
to.
wrap.
That's right.
And that's what's so
good. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to exterminate trans people. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
harmful because I think back to when I first realized that I was trans, right? Mm-hmm. I realized
how old were you?
I have to do something because this gender dysphoria has followed me my entire life. It wasn't going away. I tried to ignore it. I tried to...
But how old was she when she realized she was trans? That's a really important question because like I feel like if she was like 8, you know what I mean? She's kind of naining her narrative a little bit. And I feel like she's not going to say it.
Put it into other things. I tried to compartmentalize it. It went nowhere. And the day that I realized, you know, I guess that means I have to transition.
Yeah.
It meant so much to me that I was able to have resources to do that. It meant so much to me that there was a path and that people like you set that path and I can, you know, a roadmap vaguely that I could go down. And so this is all very real, the trans thing to us. Gender dysphoria, you know, transitioning, being trans, it's a very real thing. And it's not this political football to us like it is to everyone else. To all these other people, it's this issue that you can talk about being right or wrong or fundraising for or whatever. For us, this is our lives. And we're seeing our...
Well, what age did she realize she had gender dysphoria? I'm just fucking curious, bro. I feel like that's a super relevant question, no? Like, is that... Why won't she tell us? Is there somewhere on there? What age did... Blaire White find she had gender dysphoria? Did she ever say? Okay, that's not the same video.
Community being... People pretend as if we're fighting against trans.
I know,
we're fighting against the community when we're sitting here screaming and begging for these people that are coming into the community to not fucking discredit.
That's right.
Because it's
because she's apparently she started transitioning at 20, but does that mean that she realized she was trans at 20? Because she said that like, oh yeah, it took some like I had to like come to terms with it or whatever. I just wonder.
So we're like, you know, a lot of far right people don't like it because they think the entire concept of being trans is something that is illegitimate or constructed. No, it's not. Gender dysphoria is long studied, long documented, and we can talk about what the best measures for that are. But that conversation now has to come after the kid stuff.
That's right.
And the politicization of it.
That's right.
We can't even get to like what we can theoretically do about gender dysphoria in the future, possibly finding a cure.
Possibly.
No one even talks about that.
Nope, they don't.
You know,
They
everyone
do not.
talks about how transition is so faulty, which I agree that it is. It's not 100% thing. It's different for everyone, different results for everyone.
That's
Maybe someday there could be a cure, so where you could take a medication and never have to have the need to transition.
That's right.
You know?
It's an interesting concept. I wonder how that would work because I feel like okay, so I mean that'd be great if we had a cure, but then the question is like okay, would you force people to take it or would you allow them to go down which path they wanted? Like what if they would prefer to transition or something? I don't know why you would, but like what would you force somebody to go through this like it's interesting. I wonder what that cure would be. What if it's that drug you were saying was terrible? Would you still agree with it?
Yeah.
And then people say, well, that means you're erasing trans people. Well, actually, that means you're erasing gender dysphoria. Which
No, it means you want to actually. I want to take. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be trans. I'll tell you right now. I didn't want to be a transsexual man. I want to be a man. I want to be born. I would have given everything to be born a man. This is not some. This is.
Yeah, but now you would be a woman if you took the cure. You would be a woman because it would cure your gender dysphoria. So like you wouldn't be a man. Okay.
It's just a fix for the problem that I have, my disorder. I don't care anybody out there doesn't want to think of it as a mental disorder. I do. It's my disorder, what I feel, how I needed to fix it, but I wish to God I was born a guy. So today what we have is trans identity, and that's the difference with me and possibly you. I don't identify as a trans person. That was never on the table for me.
I just like am.
It's
not a, I don't put it on my business card or something. It's literally just
That's
like,
right.
this is something that...
I'm assuming they're referring to like non-binary people. Okay.
I do believe I was either born with or developed extremely early, prior to the point where I can remember anything, at the very least. Followed me throughout my life, and I sought to fix it the way I figured out how to.
So it's just like it's just interesting because I know that I think Buck said at one point that like, yeah, I know they're trans kids, but it's like, okay, both of these people, or Blaire just admitted that she was trans from like a young age and she knew. I feel like, doesn't that hurt your argument a little bit? Like, I'm not like the carefulness I'm fine with, but I mean, like, you know, we're acknowledging that a lot of trans people realize they're trans at a young age. It's like, how do we flesh out the actual like kids with gender dysphoria versus like kids who are identifying and think that they have gender dysphoria? That's the way that I would like phrase the question.
That's right. But it's become this other thing now, and it's just, there's going to be such a large pendulum effect. It's going to come down on people like you and I, and then they're going to be looking at us like, where were you when the 12-year-olds were getting their breasts cut off? And it's like, well, actually, I was right here talking about it.
Actually, that's what I say all the time. You know how people always say, well, where was everybody when these little kids were getting right? Nobody was speaking up. Actually, we are speaking up. And I say it all the time. I'm going to be on the right side when this actually explodes. And I'm going to be on the side that said, well, Buck and Blaire, we're speaking up about this. But no one seems to, but they're listening, Blaire. They are. I really do see people coming around now and understanding when you start putting children in a space of medical, these kids will be medicalized for the rest of their lives.
That's so important to state, because what people don't understand is like, everyone that's not trans has no idea what transitioning really is, or what hormones really are, what they really do, what they don't do. We are on hormones forever.
Forever.
We're not hormones for the year of our transition story. Like, I feel like, 'cause I did a video where I chronicled my surgeries and stuff, and I think people think that like period was like my transition period and now I'm good. No, you're on medication forever.
Yeah.
So again, what sane person thinks a 12-year-old can decide to be on medication forever? I don't fucking know.
They're not sane. That's the problem. Who's ever running this show, they're complete wingnut crazy people who want to. Here's the deal. I want to coexist in the world. I want to be part of the world. I transition to be a man and live in the world. These people want to dominate space. They want to take over women's space. They want to come in and say people with uteruses, people with whatever. That's not fair, and that's not okay because.
Why? Wait, I get the first one because like I get the whole trans sports thing. Like I get it, but I'm not gonna contest that. But like, I don't understand this last thing. Wait, what?
Want to come in and say people with uteruses, people with whatever. That's not fair. And
that's why is that not fair to you? Why, that doesn't make any sense. Like I think it's like a little ridiculous that every single time we talk about like a period, we have to make sure to include trans men. Like it's like, oh, when women get their periods, like, well, trans men can too. It's like, okay, but you understand that that's a massive outlier. But like, what's the problem with people saying like people with uteruses? Not making it the standard necessarily, I guess. But like, what does it matter? Like, why? What's the problem with it from a trans person? Because like, there are trans men with uteruses. Like, don't you acknowledge that trans men have uteruses? Like, why would you be against it? That just feels like a petty thing to like disagree with as somebody that like at some point probably, or does now, probably at some point. I think they said they had a hysterectomy. Has a uterus. Like, why is that weird to say people with uteruses? I'm just confused. It's confused.
It's not okay because people don't have uteruses. Women have uteruses. Trans men can have a uterus. But when we start wiping out language in order for
what doesn't make any sense. Women have uterus and trans men. It's like, what the fuck is happening here? It just kind of feels like you're trying to appeal to like transphobic people at this point with that line. Like, why? Like, what's wrong with that language? Why is that like a hill to die on? Like, I'm just confused. Okay.
Trans people to feel comfortable in the world, that is insane, and I will not be part of that.
It used to be, it would kind of be like me like moving to China and then being like, actually y'all have to do things like America. It's like, no.
How is that the same? I'm very confused. Okay.
Trans people and I don't understand.
It'd be more like if like you move to China and you're like, hey, this is my English name, can you please call me? And they're like, no. And then I don't know how you'd have like a Chinese name or something, but okay, I don't know, I feel like this is weird.
Why the virtue of like being humble is so gone now.
That's right.
But like,
or like more like if you move to China and you're like, hey, respect me for like the boundaries I set that may not align with your boundaries, like for me personally, like, you know, go over there, don't, you know, that, like, I don't know, like that's just so fucking weird. I just feel like that was not particularly a particularly good example of what you're saying.
Trans people, I feel like, do need to be humble enough in the sense of like, we are something that is rare. We are something that's unique. We have to learn how to coexist in the world, not dominate the world and change it to our whims, because it doesn't even make sense.
No.
And it's going down.
That's right. And when you're honest, oh my God, people love you because you're honest. People love me because I'm honest. Most of the people that come to me, watch me, are all cisgender, which I actually even hate.
Most people who come to me. Wait, is he being like serious when he says come to me? Most people who come to me are like, because like he's a porn star. What the fuck? Oh, this is so interesting. Okay.
that word and I don't use it. But that being said, the people who come to me are not trans and not LGBT. They're like, oh, Buck, you're just a normal dude. That's all I want the world to see. That people like us just want to get.
I think he actually meant people who like legitimately come to me. That's fucking hilarious. Holy shit.
Stuff and move forward and become doctors, lawyers, YouTubers, whatever the heck we want to be.
Don't become a YouTuber. You don't want to be a YouTuber, but trust me.
You probably do.
I love you.
Listen, this has been amazing, Buck. We're gonna film another thing that's really special here after this, but
Yeah.
you know, this conversation needs to be happening.
That's
Are they
right.
doing porn? Like that's hot,
Thank you
dude.
for putting us out there.
Guys, make sure you subscribe to this channel as well as my second channel. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Buck on all his social media. It'll be on the screen here, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.
I don't give a fuck about that. Okay, well that was interesting. It's definitely an interesting video. It's kind of fucking preposterous. Okay. Some of it was cool. I like that we're talking about this kind of stuff. I just wish we were talking about it in like a more honest way, I suppose. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and another special shout out to all my Patreon and Twitch subs. If you'd like to support this channel further than you already have by just watching the video alone, go down to the links below where you can sub on my Patreon, which will allow you to get your name on this beautiful black wall. Or you can go to the Twitch page and you can actually use a free Amazon Prime sub, if you have Amazon Prime, to subscribe. Thank you very much, guys. Take care.